Good morning.
Good morning.
For the new members, this is something different we do. You're a new member of this year, you may not realize that once a year we do a couple of things differently. At the end of today, I'm going to introduce some of our newer members, and I'm going to ask them to come up here for a very brief little ceremony, and if they want to share a word or two, you're welcome to do that. No pressure, it's pretty casual. We don't do too many ritualistic things here that are going to be considered odd. We're about human connection. We also, once a year, have a meeting where members share some ideas. And I sent out a note a little while ago about the topic for today, cultivating character. So you're going to read from your chair. Those of you who have been in conversation with me about this, Winnie will bring the mic to you. So our bylaws, actually, if you look at them, which I know you all read them every evening, they actually say that the reason why we exist as an organization is, quote, to cultivate character. So I wanted to look a little bit at this. I know it takes effort. Cultivation implies that. If you want to have a strong character, I think you have to cultivate it because it doesn't happen by itself. And I want to be clear about that. I don't think character by itself gets cultivated. Felix Adler knew that. That's why he founded this alternative to traditional religion, this humanist community here. Ethical societies generally give interpersonal support and humanist inspiration. When people say, well, you guys meet on Sunday, you're religion, I say, well, we do offer inspiration and community, which is what a lot of places of worship do. And we offer this because we believe that people help people build character and do good in the world. We have ideas that help us make better choices. We have people that support us and follow through when we say we're going to do something. And this community does this again and again and again. When any of us stumble, or as a community, when we fall into error, we usually regroup fairly quickly with each other's support. The community itself comes together. And we have to do that because people are fragile. We live in a capricious world that can break us over and over again. It makes me think a little bit of gardening, cultivation, and the fact that it is difficult and the fact that we are not in full control. Like character, gardens are ultimately at the mercy of the wind. When you garden, Mother Nature can nurture at one moment and destroy it the next, like tornadoes, as an example. So, given this, we don't know what's around the corner. We don't know if it's going to be sunny, or if it's going to be droughts, or floods, or pestilence. Well, a gardener tries to work with the forces of nature, and if they're lucky, they'll reap bountiful harvests. But gardening is hard work. You have to pull out the weeds of apathy, of anger, of indifference, of unreasonableness that can grow in our gardens. We must turn over the soil and work in the manure. And in life, there's lots of manure. Right? We plant seeds, we water them, we tend them in the hope that they will grow. We hope, like ourselves, to grow courage, to grow compassion within us. So in today, as I explore cultivating character, we're not going to offer a step-by-step explanation of how to do that. This is not a puzzle that fits together where every piece fits exactly. The people who are going to share today are individual, they're going to share their thoughts, and each of these bundles of thoughts are bright and colorful, so consider this less of a step-by-step guide than a bouquet. A bouquet that you can use to inspire you and uplift you and draw from it what you can to help you live a life that's closer to your values. This is deeply personal work. And it's easier to do, however, this is the irony, if you have a community that supports you. One member who preferred to remain anonymous talked about it this way. For me, character is a two-way mirror, reflecting my ethics, intellectual interest, and compassion, while I try to identify others who have the same outlook. I search for those who share my values and ethics, for people who are deep thinkers and care deeply about others. That search requires looking carefully at this two-way mirror, both at myself and at others. It takes listening carefully to what others say, not jumping to conclusions or assuming things. This two-way mirror means that we are seen by others who are searching for people with similar values and ethics too. Character also requires adjusting to life, as experiences teach us new ways of seeing the world. Character is never static. It is organic. It's the movement of the intellect from one plane to another, guided by curiosity, acceptance and rejection, and the desire to live the best life possible. Now, as we look at character, I think we need to distinguish from personality. I think personality is a little more superficial, but character is deeper, more fundamental. Dr. Alex Lickerman, author of The Undefeated Mind, puts it this way. Personality is easy to read. We're all experts in it. We judge people as funny, extroverted, energetic, optimistic, confident, as well as overly serious, lazy, negative, and shy, if not upon first meeting them, then very soon thereafter. Character, on the other hand, takes far longer to puzzle out. It includes traits that reveal themselves only in specific and often uncommon circumstances. Traits like honesty, virtue, and kindliness. So I think it takes a while to develop character, but it will be something that affects our lives more than anything else I think that we have power over. Emerson wrote, sow a thought, as in sowing seeds, right? S-O-W. Sow a thought, reap an act. Sow an act, reap a habit. Sow a habit, reap a character. Sow a character, reap a destiny. Now, Felix Adler saw similar wisdom in the writings of Aristotle. Aristotle explained that habits guide us more than ideas. This may seem strange to you for a person of ideas like Aristotle, but he believed that habits guide us more than ideas. He thought that we had to nurture habits so that they became our second nature, so they could consistently guide us. And this commitment to deed before creed that we embrace at the Ethical Society is wrapped up in this. Adler explained, ethical societies are educational communities intended to create those habits through which the light of ethical principles shimmer. So the educational focus of this place is evident in Adler's commitment to helping young people, which he was involved in throughout his time with ethical culture. He created daycare centers and schools and job training sites and service opportunities for young people. It's why we have Camp Linden at the Ethical Society here. It's why we hope to nurture a sustainable SEEK program, education program for our kids. By the way, you may see Elliot up at coffee today, one of our SEEK kids, and he's going to ask you to fill out a questionnaire. He only has 16, so we only need 16 volunteers to fill out a questionnaire about the importance of climate change education. So if you see him, do that. We want to try to provide Elliot and Ben and all the kids in our Sunday Ethical Education program, Elliot, the idea that we have a long-term project in life, and we are here for them early. I think one of the main reasons why I came to the Ethical Society is I saw a challenge here to further my own education. One of the people that I met early on was Linda Richardson, who is still wrapping up her work at the Broad Street Run, a charity event this morning. She's all wet, hoping to get here in time to read her statement, but I told her I would read it if she wasn't here. She talks about character this way. She says, in my personal and professional life, as well as my personal values, cultivating character means to be being polite, giving to others. It means following the golden rule and participating in charity and philanthropy. Cultivation means being open to growth, being patient about learning and teaching, and being willing to listen. In raising my children, growing character meant having them pay attention to what I do and not what I say. It means helping them understand the suffering of others. I wanted to be sure that they understood that my love for them meant that they did not have to do anything outside of character. In ethical humanism, cultivating character meant striving to be a better person, understanding other situations, and often being your best in spite of the situation. Cultivation is a process of growth. You may not get there in the beginning, but in the end, you have plants and flowers. Another person who's very dedicated to education in our camp, Linda, I'd like to call on now. So, Winnie, would you bring the mic to Carol Love? Carol, where are you? Over there.
Thank you. Raise your children with love and respect, and where possible, send them to an ethical Sunday school. They should learn the golden rule, kindness, and caring for animals as much as for people. A former member I knew suggested we compliment someone on something every day. It's important to demonstrate your care and concern to everyone you encounter, thereby setting an example for others. Speak up in support of your beliefs whenever others fail to be considerate and respectful. Instruct others about the different ways to see the world and to honor alternative opinions and behaviors. Speak up when hateful speech and unkind actions occur. Be brave enough to stand up against the mob. Sometimes it takes only one voice of reason to halt an injudicious action. Learn more about the heroines and the heroes you admire. They can inspire you. Don't forget that the right choice is often the hardest one to make. And don't forget that you could be wrong. There's a piece on the radio on a website called seehowtheylie.com. And it says, know the risks, know the penalties. Keep in mind there are some people who don't look at the world the same way we do.
Those last words that Carol read in her prepared statement, you could be wrong. That's the real challenge in life, I think. Character and goodness, I think, require that you stand up and say what you believe, with loudly and proudly, while simultaneously knowing that you could be wrong. You could be wrong. So it's best to cultivate a healthy dose of humility. It's good to laugh at yourself now and then, not take life too seriously, so that we don't let our righteousness turn into blindness or conceit. Another paradox that I think we find is that character and goodness require that you stand up and say what you believe, but at the same time honor alternative opinions, which when you're sure of yourself is hard to do sometimes. To do this well, to speak as if what you say you really believe, while not dismissing thoughts and feelings of others, takes a lot of practice. I think that you can begin by admitting that we are speaking from our own experience. We can begin by admitting that our wisdom and knowledge and our access to evidence is limited. To speak from what we really believe but admit that we could be wrong means that we have to let our ego get out of the way. We could be wrong simply because life is complicated. Ethical dilemmas are rich and textured and complex. And things are not so black and white. This is one of the reasons why I think we need role models in life. When the going gets tough, we seek advice from those we respect, in person or through books if they've died. Rules and procedures can always help, but usually, when it's really tough to sort out the right and the wrong, what's great about role models is that although they are remarkable, they also have feet of clay. They have flaws, they have faults, just like you and I have. And because of that, studying them can help us sift through how we make choices when we could be wrong. We learn best through the art of cultivating character by watching other people cultivate theirs. I want to ask now Bob Steinfort and then Doris Leichert to share their reflections with us.
My dictionary says the word cultivate means, and I quote, try to acquire or develop a quality or skill. As an ethical humanist, almost every choice I make in my life, from the mundane to the life-changing, involves cultivating my character. For example, do I tell the cashier that she gave me too much back in change? Or do I take the money and run? Do I try and eat more environmentally healthy and sustainable food, or do I have yet another steak? Do I walk or bike to nearby stores, or hop in my car? Do I speak truth to power, or do I keep silent for fear of retribution? When making decisions, I now borrow from many traditions, including my previous faith path as a Christian in the Lutheran tradition. I will ask myself, what would Jesus do? As well as asking, what would Confucius or Siddhartha Gautama do? From modern times, I will ask, what would Gandhi or Martin Luther King do? I find that all my decisions have consequences, and if I ponder what is right versus what is convenient, I will be faced with many issues that do not have black and white, yes and no answers. For better or for worse, I live in the gray.
Doris.
To me, character means being able to pursue, consistent goals/values over time. Too much makes us rigid, too little impulsive. It means doing the harder thing because it's the right thing to do. To cultivate character, a half-hour goal. It is lived in an earlier time and also was poor, which means enforced voluntary simplicity. That means a lot of frustration to tolerate because our culture, consumerism, has spoiled us. It highlights that many things we need are just conveniences. Part of the cultivation is also being able to tolerate my foibles without taking myself too seriously. To me, maybe because I grew up in agricultural Bavaria, cultivation is tied to agriculture and generating nourishment. In retrospect, I realized that as administrator, I was rewarded by hearing the people at my clinic chat happily, which was the cultivation of an organizational culture. I believe that cultivating the best in each other is the highest cultivation there is. I recently started thinking and researching about religion and discovered that over the centuries, in their original teachings, Buddhists, Socrates, Jesus, Confucius, Lao Tse, and Islam developed remarkably consistent goals of a good character. In order to have a good life, we have to get over ourselves and become involved in something larger than ourselves. In ethical humanism, that is expressed in that if we bring out the best in others, we also bring out the best in ourselves. As mammals, our evolution demands cooperation and altruism, and our emotions are geared to that. If we are individualistic, we experience existential despair. If we trust in our reason too much and don't cultivate our affects and emotions, we will not move. What is the best we ought to bring out in others and ourselves is our version of a code.
Bob and Doris both see value in the great spiritual leaders of our tradition. These role models help us manage ourselves and navigate through the gray, those areas where things aren't so clear as we wish them to be. And this is a never-ending, lifelong journey, this project of cultivating character. We continue to examine ourselves and develop our attributes all our lives. And thank goodness for that. Aisha Richardson, Linda's daughter, who I believe is also at the Broad Street Run at the moment, talked about cultivating character as a lifelong pursuit, she said. Character unfolds as knowledge of yourself and knowledge of the world that surrounds you are incorporated into your behavior. It's about deed, not creed. She says to cultivate means to explore ideas, new places in the physical, emotional, and social sense. It means to challenge preconceived notions of self and other, while we remain stuck in perception of the ideal. We shut ourselves off to the unlimited possibilities. We become a lock, not a key. Keys open minds to searching within and without for higher ideas. That was Aisha Richardson. A little like. I thought about cultivation when I came for my welcome at this society. 4 generations of Aisha and Linda's family were there to get to greet me with Bertha and Aisha's daughter. And that just showed me how much we cultivate, literally, through our families. Most of us in this room know that the challenge of living up to our ideals is tough. We usually fall short. And to live as though our actions match our beliefs is going to be tough, but I think it's important that we get used to having those high ideals and working towards them, even if we cannot get there all at once. It takes discipline, it takes strength, physical and mental strength, and these are qualities we struggle to muster. Which is why I think character requires perseverance. Perseverance, the ability to get up after being knocked down. Regardless of the setbacks, to continue on this journey, to be open to a lifelong process. And this means you have to accept that you're never going to be done. We have to follow our moral compass towards the horizon, and yet the horizon keeps receding and keeps receding. So it's the journey, it's not so much the destination. And that means that we have to accept that we have limited time. It's easier to have a goals list that you can just check off every day and feel like you're making progress. I do that. Sometimes I make lists just so I can cross stuff off. It's not so easy to accept that our precious life is just a drop in the ocean of time. In working on this program, one member shared their love for a book that many of you enjoyed as well and find meaning in, Viktor Frankl's Man's Search for Meaning. And in it, Frankl challenged you to imagine that your individual life story, written out to the last period that is death's conclusion, is over. And then to imagine that you've got to come back to the present moment and live your life over again into the future with all the ups and downs, all the events and happenings occurring exactly the same, except you could change your attitude. He says, how would you live your life then? Frankl urges us to live it more fully, more freely. And for Frankl, freedom consists in choosing your attitude towards life. It reminds me of a phrase that Reinhold Niebuhr said, and I repeat it without the theistic elements that entered into Alcoholics Anonymous, because there's a lot of truth to it. Grant me the serenity to accept things I cannot change, courage to change things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. That's essential for character. I'll now ask Steve Gold and Julie Van Noord to offer you more food for thought about something simple and profound, open minds, generosity, kindness, points of view.
Character evolves from childhood to adolescence and adulthood. Even, I suspect, as we approach the end of life, which may also be the ultimate test of character, Parents, other family members, mentors, and religion can have enormous influence by cultivating the values and the character of a young child and defining right from wrong. But as children grow, their world widens. When social awareness and the need to belong become prevalent in their lives, they are exposed to character traits different from their own. They find that ethics are fluid. From middle school and beyond, young people see others getting away with cutting corners, even cheating, to get ahead, to win. Inevitably, mistakes are made, and sometimes lessons learned that cultivate character. But it is the inner voice in all of us, louder in some than others, that serves as ballast as we encounter the rough edges of life while trying to achieve our own goals. Wrestling with dilemmas that prompt the question, what should I do, cultivates character. A mature, fully formed character evolves from internal debate. Reading history, biographies, and philosophy can help. An awareness and respect for the nuances of opinion and behavior require empathy. Empathy allows for insight into other points of view, an open mind, and respect for the values or cultural norms of others. Ultimately, empathy and an open mind are at the core of ethical humanism.
Right here.
To be honest, I don't think much about character building. What I do think about is being kind, being generous. We live in such polarized times that I need to constantly remind myself that we are all the expression of our experiences, and that this too will pass. In the meantime, I can try to look at difference in a positive way and be kind. This is part of what ethical humanism is all about. It's recognizing the need for social justice and the need to give everyone the opportunity to have what they need.
I'll take a minute. Our actions are simply expressions of our experience. And the fact, like Julie said, this too will pass is no small lesson to learn. We have a short time here together, so let's spend it encouraging each other to cultivate our character and to grow goodness as best we can in our own way. There are no simple instructions, as I said, especially no simple instructions on how to cultivate habits of the heart. Habits of the heart. I think that habits of the heart are what the ancients wrote about when they talked about virtues. In his book, Reverence, Paul Woodruff stresses the importance of virtue, this somewhat overlooked and perhaps out-of-fashion word, is less about knowledge than it is about feelings. And I think we forget that sometimes. Feelings you shape over your life through practice. Woodruff writes, virtue ethics holds that you learn a virtue as your capacity for feelings is attuned over the years of experience. You may learn rules intellectually, and therefore you may learn or forget them very quickly. But virtues are habits of feeling, and these are harder to learn and harder to forget. Recently I was asked whether I'm satisfied with what I've done in my life. One of those, if you were to die now, or would you be happy type of questions. And my immediate thought was, no, No, there's so much more to do. That's never going to change. There's always going to be more to do. So I wonder if a more useful question is not, are you satisfied with what you've done? But are you content with who you are? That's a question about character. That's a question easier to answer if you take the time and give the effort required to cultivate character. I invite you to see how you best cultivate your character. I don't think it happens in giant steps. I think that's wishful thinking. I think character is developed by caring effort day by day on the mundane things. And through this persistence, guided by those you admire the most as role models, you can find that you can be happy not necessarily with what you've done, but with who you are. And that's what I think character is really about. It's what I'm trying to do in this little experiment I'm doing here called Ethical Evolution. We're going to meet tomorrow night if you want to join in. I call it a workshop. It's really more of a self-paced exploration of how you cultivate your character. If you've been to an Ethical Evolution meeting, can you just raise your hand, wave it around? Right. 1, 2. Only 2 here today. All right. More of you want to join, please come tomorrow at 6, and then the veterans can come at 7 if they're available. I think cultivating character is the most important thing. It's the most personal thing. It's what I take the most time to try to consider doing, not just for my work as an ethical culture leader, but in myself as well. I am particularly grateful to all of you who reflect back, who allow me to look through this two-way mirror where we look at others for advice and guidance and look at ourselves as well. I want to thank Linda and Carol and Bob and Doris and Aisha and Steve and Julie and many others of you who have shared your ideas with me. I want to thank you for making the Ethical Society a place that we can all, with humility and in community, cultivate character. Thank you.